Every secret has a price. And this is a true story.
This is a true story. Names and locations have been changed to protect privacy, but everything you're about to hear really happened in the United States. There were 56 chairs at the funeral. I counted them while everyone else cried. Victoria had chosen silver-trimmed folding chairs. She said they photographed better, but only 55 were filled. The one next to her, the one reserved for me, stayed empty. She told the usher not to seat me there. She said it would make things complicated. Complicated, like mourning her father while secretly texting her attorney about divorce filings, wasn't already complicated. I stood at the back, not beside her, not with family, not even among distant cousins. I stood next to a ficus tree and a woman who once dated her uncle in the 90s. I held a funeral program that spelled my last name wrong. Nobody offered me a tissue. When she stood to speak about her father, Richard Hale, the oil magnate, she didn't mention me. Not once. Not in the list of survivors. Not in the thank yous. Not even a sideways glance. She wore black silk jewelry, heels sharp enough to puncture egos. She cried perfectly, enough to seem human, not enough to smudge mascara. And when she returned to her seat, she leaned in and whispered to the man sitting where I should have been. He laughed. I didn't know who he was. I didn't care. Because what happened after the service, that's where the story begins. On the way out, she dropped her handkerchief, deliberately, right in front of me. I bent to pick it up like a fool. And that's when I saw it, the folded corner of a document in her clutch. My name, in bold, next to a case number. She had filed the divorce before the funeral, before the flowers, before the eulogy, before the mascara tears. 2 days later, she would inherit $250 million. 2 days after that, she would hand me an envelope and say, "Daniel, I'm choosing myself." But the will had other plans. I didn't sleep the night before the reading, not a minute. I lay on my cousin's pull-out couch, pipes clanking above me, wondering if I should even show up. What would be the point? Victoria had already taken everything. The marriage, the dignity I once had standing beside her. When a woman leaves you before the flowers on her father's grave even wilt, you stop expecting fairness from the world. But that document, that single flash of my name, it gnawed at me. The estate was a fortress, a hill in Hampton Chase, wrought iron gates, whispers in the trees. Even the breeze smelled expensive. I wasn't invited through the front. I was guided to a side door, the one for caterers and staff. Inside, the study. Leather chairs, animal heads, a clock that survived 3 wars. Victoria sat in slate gray, mourning period complete. Beside her, the same man from the funeral, polished loafers, gold tags, shoes that wanted to be stared at. I sat in a corner, in the shadow, unwelcome. The lawyer entered, manila envelope in hand, voice heavy with formality. As the legal representative of the late Richard Hale, I will read his final instructions, witnessed, notarized, and recorded 2 months before his passing. 2 months. He had updated the will recently, very recently. I remembered Victoria going on that retreat alone. "You'd be bored anyway," she had said, tossing sunscreen into her suitcase. At the time, I believed her. Now I wasn't so sure. The lawyer listed assets, properties in Rhode Island, an apartment in Paris, vehicles worth more than my childhood home, art pieces by names I couldn't pronounce. Then the distribution. To my daughter, Victoria Elise Hale. She tilted her head like a queen awaiting her crown. I leave the sum of $1 million to be managed by the family trust. Victoria blinked once. "Did you mean 100 million?" The lawyer didn't flinch. "No, 1 million. The remainder goes to another beneficiary." He opened a sealed letter, Richard's handwriting. "If you're hearing this, Victoria, I'm gone. I watched you change. You stopped visiting unless there was a camera. You brought that man into my home. You laughed behind my back. You loved your inheritance more than your father, so my money will not be your reward." The lawyer's voice hardened. "To the man who married my daughter, despite knowing she would despise him, to the man who tolerated my cruelty with dignity and stayed even when he should have left, Daniel Ross, I leave the remainder of my estate." Time broke. I forgot how to breathe. Victoria's face cracked. The man in loafers bolted upright. I just sat there, stunned. I didn't want this. I wanted my marriage, my Sunday mornings, my cat. But none of that mattered, because now I was heir to a $250 million empire, and the woman who left me was staring at the floor like it had betrayed her too. I walked out, past the fountain, through the gates. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one left behind. Days later, the truth deepened. The lawyers called me back. Supplemental documents, an addendum. Richard's money didn't come free. It came with rules. 40% locked in trust. It would activate only if I stayed divorced from Victoria for 18 months. If I went back to her, I would lose it. The fortune would go instead to a sanctuary for abandoned dogs. At the end was a handwritten note. "Daniel, if you are tempted to return to the cage, remember you were never the pet. She only knew how to feed you. Don't let her leash you again. R.H." A loyalty test from beyond the grave. But Victoria came back. Of course she did. Not with sorrow, with hunger. Polished, strategic. "You don't deserve this. You're just a symbol, a mistake that lasted too long." She tried to hand me folders, proposals, negotiations, threats dressed as offers. I didn't take them. For the first time, I had leverage. And then the library footage, a flash drive, a secret panel, Richard's final record. Victoria, standing in that room, pacing, snapping, her father silent,
You hate me so much you'd give your empire to him? He doesn't belong in this world. He unclogged your toilet. This is humiliating." Richard leaned forward. "You made your choice. You left him before I was gone.